So in 2022, I performed this really lovely Yule-themed magical spell. Unfortunately, my spell failed dismally. So at the end of 2022, I came across a magical creator on TikTok by the name of Vanessa the Wonder Worker. Her TikTok handle is Vanessa and her iPhone, and I will have her tagged down below in the description box. She had designed this really inspiring spell that she had called 12 Magical Nights. And the basic context of the spell was that you were supposed to write out 13 wishes for yourself for the coming year of 2023 on individual slips of paper that you would then fold up so that you couldn't see which wish was on which piece of paper. Then over the course of 12 nights, you were supposed to burn one of those slips of paper so on the 12th night, you would be left with one wish. And there was this lovely added dimension of the pageantry of tarot cards. It was just a really great experience, and I'm very happy that I performed that spell, even though it didn't work for me.
My spell failed
dismally.
And I just want to say that this was not at all Vanessa's fault or problem. She is a completely different magical practitioner, so this may work for her. I'm just expounding on why I feel this spell didn't work for me and how can I course correct spells for myself in the future. But before I go any further, welcome, I am Ruby Ruse and this is Fairy Fortunes, where I talk about fairy folklore and my own personal experience with fairy faith, spirituality, and magic. Now, magic is a very subjective subject, and it's been my experience that there are people in the magical community who try to bully other magical creators by calling them fluffy bunny. So occasionally I get a little heated and I drop a little bunny bomb from time to time to point out things that I think are a little bit controversial in the magical community. And speaking of which, here's a controversial fact right now. Bunny bomb! The truth is, we all make mistakes all the time in life and also in magic. So no matter how skilled of a magical practitioner you are still going to have spells fail from time to time. I actually don't mind it when my spells fail. Well, let me rephrase that. I do mind it, but I learn so much from my failures. So whenever I have a spell that goes awry or doesn't quite manifest the way that I had intended it to, I take some time to look at what went wrong and evaluate so that I can be better prepared for future spells. Have you ever had a spell go completely awry? It might be fun to share these stories so that we can all learn and grow together. If you would like to comment down below with a magical mistake that you have made, I'd be so grateful. But better yet, why don't you send me an email? You can reach me at rubyruse@fairyfortunes.com. So one of the 13 wishes that I had for myself in 2023 was that I wanted to get a meaningful job that made use of my experience and made me feel valued and like I was contributing something positive to the community at large. I am now working in a social service agency. I really, really love it. So that actually did manifest for me. However, I had actually written my own spell for that back in October of 2022. So I have to kind of consider, was it my own spell that manifested or was it part of this spell? And then going back to the final wish that was really supposed to be something that I put my own energy into and really was supposed to show more personal focus on, was that I wanted to perform in an ensemble theater production. And the only thing that I can say to that is with my new social service agency that I work for, we had a Christmas party at the end of the year, and part of the festivities were that each department of the agency was supposed to write and perform a little 5-minute sketch to show like a day in the life of that particular department of the agency. So I did write that sketch, and I performed in that sketch with my coworkers in front of an audience. So did my spell manifest, just not in the way that I expected? You could make that stretch. Like, you could say that that was a manifestation of that, and I'm just being too greedy, if you will. But I'm really going to have to say that that really wasn't what I intended. And so I really personally can't look at that as a success story for this spell. In my own spell work, where I'm designing a spell for myself, I really take time to delineate very clear sensory, tactile elements of success. I will actually write out in my spell, this is what success looks like. This is what success sounds like. This is what success will feel like. Not feel emotionally, but feel like on my skin, a tangible experience. And then I will even put in elements of smell and taste. If I had written the spell myself, I would have said, I wanted to see a theater auditorium with an audience in it. I will hear the applause of the audience. To give you an idea of the other senses, I will feel the heat of the lights on my skin. For smell, I would have said I would smell the electrics expending energy. And for taste, I probably would have said, I will taste champagne as we celebrate the opening night performance. Moving forward, if I do choose to use a spell that somebody else has designed, I'm going to really have to remind myself to include in that spell design my own element of, here are the tactile, sensory elements that I need to show me success and manifestation. Another thing that I have to acknowledge is that in my own spell work, when I'm designing a spell for myself, is that I actually write out specific activities I am willing to do that will help me accomplish this magic, that will show that I'm invested in the process. And to some extent, especially if I'm working with other beings like maybe gods or fairies in my spell work, that there are activities that I put in that will be somewhat of a sacrifice to those helper spirits to show that I am participating and invested in the magic. So, for example, I did get a job in 2023. In the previous spell that I had done on my own, I had written out that I was going to go on LinkedIn at least twice a week. I was going to apply to at least one job every single week. I was going to be active on social media with companies that I admired and wanted to work with. These were all tangible things that I could do to show my willing participation in this magical process. I didn't have full control over the spell. I didn't write it. And that's not to say that someone else's spell design is never going to work, or that Vanessa's spell wouldn't work for somebody else. It's just for me as a magical practitioner, I just feel that I have much more success when I'm in control of all of the elements. I actually don't think that magic really has anything to do with the moon or the astrological sign that's up there right now. I don't think that you need to cast spells only on a Tuesday or on the night of the full moon. I think that that can help. I think that that can add symbolism. I think that that can add metaphor. I think that that can add power to a spell. But I don't think that that is what makes or breaks a spell. I think that those are elements that contribute, but that's not where magic comes from. While we all may recognize that certain symbols have a universal meaning, like let's take something as simple as a stop sign, like pretty much wherever you are in the world, if you see an octagonal sign that says stop on it, you know that what that means. That if you are traveling in a car, you're supposed to stop your car before going through that intersection. But different people have different responses to a stop sign. For example, with me, when I see a stop sign, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's no one else on the road. If I see a stop sign, I am coming to a complete stop, and I will feel my car rock at that stop sign so that I know that I've come to a complete stop. That is what a stop sign means to me. But for other people, sometimes when they see a stop sign, it means to slow down and keep going through the intersection. Some people, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, that means that the stop sign doesn't matter. Like, lots of people have different reactions to the same symbol that has a clear and set meaning. So for me personally, I like to have complete control over the metaphors and symbols going into my spell because they're there for me. They're there to inspire me. It doesn't mean that I'm never going to experiment with someone else's spell design in the future. It just means that I'm really going to have to spend more time than I did really evaluating the symbology in the spell. The essential design of the spell was that it had 13 paths of focus. And as lovely as this spell was, it was an adventure. It was really joyful doing this spell consistently over 12 nights. Looking back on that now, I know that for me, 13 pathways was too much for me. There were too many directions being splittered off. I had my energy going in too many different directions. Generally, when I cast spells, I don't try to work on too many things at once because one spell generally suffers while I work on another one. Then I also learned from previous experience with spell work that I have to be very careful about ands, buts, and ors being involved in my spell intentions. When I write a spell, I generally have an intention statement. So for example, with the job spell that I designed in October and then also incorporated into the 12 Magical Nights spell, my statement of intention was, I desire to secure an occupation which values my acquired skills, which helps me contribute positively to the greater community. No ifs, ands, or buts there. Whereas the 12 Magical Nights spell, it was not only do I want that job, I want to perform in an ensemble theater production. In addition to 11 other things. Like, there was a lot going on in this spell. The final thing that I really had to acknowledge was a little hard for me to admit. I don't think that my heart was really in it. When I wrote out the 12 wishes for 2023, I wasn't invested in most of those things. Clearly the job was something that I was motivated to do, and so that part of it did manifest very well. Like I said, I would argue it was more my own spell than this spell. But see, that's the thing, is that I was already working on a job spell Like I had already invested time and energy into that, and I cheated and put that into the 12 magical night spell as well, because I don't think that I was fully committed to it. There wasn't enough desire behind it. I think I want something else instead, and that's okay. It's okay for me to change my mind. If you like this video, I think you might also enjoy my video, What If I Make a Magical Mistake? Please do check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I also have some merch for you, which is linked down below. And with that, my magical friends, have a magical day.